Hey everyone, welcome to another Draft League Academia series on the channel. We are doing the move Protect today, which is pretty exciting. But before I get into it, I just want to say thank you for the support on the Wi-Fi stuff. I'm sorry that this kind of stuff has been put to the wayside a little bit, but I'm hoping to pick it up a little bit more now that I'm done with university. If you have any suggestions about certain Draft League topics that you want to see on the channel, anything at all, anything Pokemon related, move related, Draft League related, anything, let me know in the comment section and I absolutely will cover it at some point. And I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all suggest. But yeah, today we are looking at the move Protect, how it can contribute to an offensive playstyle. Most people sort of view it as something that works well in combination with the move Wish kind of alone. That's really something that people really only use the move Protect for. And it is a lot more versatile of a move to click, even in the Gen 8 offensive meta, as people probably give it credit for. And I'm going to show some games and give some examples that illustrate that. So I look forward to that, and yeah, thanks for watching the video. So before I get into like games and stuff, I want to sort of go over the history of Protect and just general utility of it throughout the generations. It's a move that was introduced at the start of Generation 1. It makes the user invincible for one turn. You could see what your opponent uses. You could act accordingly the next turn in response to what Protect is. But it's not just like seeing one turn ahead or stalling out like a PowerPoint. Like there's much more utility into it. Like for example, in Generation 3, where weather was permanently up, Protect was a huge staple in that meta because it would help people gain leftovers recovery and would simultaneously inflict like Sand Chip against their opponent over time. I think BKC has a video on this, which I'll link in the description. But yeah, just with choice items around as well, especially come Generation 4 where there were more than just Choice Band. Seeing what your opponent locks into is something amazing for Protect. Using it with other forms of recovery like Poison Heal on something like Gliscor, and abilities like Pressure, for example, also make Protect a little bit more usable on defensive to stall kind of teams as well. So it's one of the few moves that has utility on really any kind of build, ranging all the way up from stall down to, or sorry, I guess from the bottom being stall to the top being like offense. And it's even possible in offense because you can sort of use it to gain residual chip against your opponent, putting it in range of all your offensive threats. In Draft League in particular, Protect is a super useful tool to scout and gather knowledge about your opponent, which is more valuable in Draft League than any other format of Mons because you want to see how your opponent prepped for your draft. So being able to see that by means of running Protect on a lot of things, if you can afford it, allows you to gain more knowledge and act accordingly, you know, adapt based on what you're seeing. Outside of just like the increasing your knowledge on your opponent's moves, I've divided the utility of Protect into 3 categories. This is going to be kind of, I wrote this stuff out. I usually don't write stuff out for these videos, but I thought this was important just to clarify stuff. So number 1, I categorized as HP management. So increasing your own HP by means of leftovers or some other residual healing ability like Rain Dish or, like I said before, Poison Heal, while simultaneously ideally making your opponent lose HP through a status condition or a field condition such as Hail or Sand Chip, or a status condition such as Toxic Poison or Burn Damage or something like that. The second category is slowing down your opponent's offense. I sort of combine this into 2 different parts to think about. Subpoint A is protecting to scout choice items and scout what your opponent is locked into. And then subpoint B is mind games. If your opponent isn't choiced, you can gain knowledge for yourself about what your opponent is willing to do. So let me paint an example for that. Hypothetically, you have a Greninja out against a Lefties Protect Stunfisk, for example, right? And Stunfisk has the means to KO Greninja through something like Thunderbolt, through some Electric Stab, but won't if Greninja goes first and then KOs it with like a water move, right? If Greninja just goes for like a Hydro Pump. However, on this turn, if there's a Toxapex sitting in the back that the opponent fears, they may try and predict and go for Extra Sensory, for example. So the Stunfisk protects, sees the Extra Sensory prediction, and now the user of Greninja is scared off from clicking Extra Sensory again, knowing that the opponent knows that they were willing to make that read in the first place, which the opponent allows to create mind games in the Greninja user's case. So that's sort of number 2, slowing down opponent's offense, playing mind games, scouting what your opponent is willing to do / what they're locked into doing. And then the third point is countering field conditions, stalling out weather, trick room, so your opponent's abusers of those field conditions like weather or trick room have more limited turns to dish out their offense. So those are the sort of three utilities for protect I found that are outside of something like wish protect, which is like an obvious way to use protect as well. Here's a sort of compilation of mons that I've pretty often used protect on in order to do really all of the things that I was mentioning. The mon I run protect on most with leftovers is easily Guzzlord, a mon that I've used extensively and a mon that I think I'm very good at using, which is really good for a mon like Guzzlord because it appreciates that sort of passive recovery given it doesn't have recovery on its own, but it's so fat that it means so much. Just the extra 6% of health in a given turn helps it significantly. Guzzlord's typing also helps out protect because usually Guzzlord demands specific coverage for it. So protect allows me to scout to see if there is coverage for Guzzlord brought by the opponent. So definitely something that I think works very well for Guzzlord and has helped me in numerous games. You can check out my game against Zombie, for example, in BBR Week 2, which is like a year ago from the channel, but it is there, but it helped a lot in there. And then it's helped me, obviously, in numerous other cases in which I've had Guzzlord. Another example that is very, very basic of an example is Aegislash, which uses King's Shield to allow it to get its defensive stance back up, essentially protect. And it's nice because, one, it allows it to be defensive so it can take another hit, but again, since Aegislash doesn't have that recovery that it needs in order to be like amazingly defensive, having something that allows it to not only get back in the defensive form, but get the residual leftovers chip, and sometimes in combination with Toxic, which is run on defensive Aegislash sets, can be used to sort of slowly whittle your opponent and put them in range of an offensive Shadow Sneak or Shadow Ball or close combat. Another example of something really bulky that lacks recovery of its own is Stunfisk. Being able to run Protect in order to get HP back with leftovers is very, very nice for a mon like Stunfisk because it appreciates having residual recovery, and usually I didn't run Toxic on this set, but usually again it will run something like Toxic or would want to see what its opponent uses against it because it's another mon that usually demands some essence of coverage. Finally, another mon that's a perfect example is Suicune. It can be used to pressure stall, it can be used to get leftovers recovery back, it can be used to sort of make Toxic residually hurt with your opponent, Scald burns, etc., etc. Another example, which isn't on here, but obviously a very perfect example, of course, is Salazzle. It has, Toxic, Protect, Substitute, and with Corrosion it can sort of Toxic absolutely anything and anything it wants, so being able to Toxic Protect with it, especially when it's so speedy, and can Substitute as well and then Protect, repeat that process, is very, very good. A game that I'd actually recommend to go watch in that case is Q versus El Scissor, which is a game in the UPBA in which Q, the Costa Rican, brings this set to totally disrupt El Scissor's balanced playstyle. One game that I believe to be a perfect example of HP management is this game of Dr. Slacking versus Root from the 6th season of the UBL, very recent game in which Matt uses Hail Chip as a means to whittle down his opponent's offense and be more susceptible to rocks, ship over time, and just lose HP in the process. He runs Protect on multiple mons so that he can take advantage of this Hail Chip, which slowly puts Victini and other mons in range of different moves from his sweepers later on, which is sort of a patient way to play offense, but still offense nonetheless. Something that he does here pretty effectively is utilize Hail, not as a means of something that is used to sweep with like a Slush Rush user, but something that rather gains residual damage over time, threatens offense, for example. And you can see as he knocks off things like leftovers on the Rotom, as you're going to see here, he's able to go for Protect and maintain his own HP with the leftovers, thankfully. But since he knocked off his opponent's leftovers. He can protect just to get residual damage off and put things in range over time. It's an annoying way to play, but things like Rotom and Victini, for example, aren't likely, at least at the point what they revealed at this point in the game, to be running much that could take advantage of protect. And as you can see, Brute goes for Shadow Ball this turn, which allows Matt to sort of realize that Shadow Ball is something that he is willing to go for against this Azumarill, and he doesn't necessarily act in any which way about it, but it just gives him the knowledge the Shadow Ball is there, which is huge for a mon like Rotom, which has limited coverage, so that knowledge is equally important as well. So this is a great game to exemplify the sort of passive Hail Chip, HP management, gaining knowledge for your opponent, and also slowing down your opponent's pivoting offense and momentum. Victini Rotom is something that really dislikes this strategy because it relies on a lot of pivoting, and they don't have a ton of recovery options outside of leftovers. Protect can also be used in terms of HP management alongside T-Spikes, which Checkmate Ben does pretty well in this recent replay in an Ubers League against Suit Dumpling, in which he basically at all costs gets up Toxic Spikes in an attempt to sort of get residual chip against his opponent and allow himself to be in a situation where he can get where he can abuse his opponent's own sand against his opponent and get residual chip via poison. Running Protect on things like Nidoking and Zamazenta allows him to sort of do a lot of effective chipping for some of his later offensive mons like Spectrier or Zarude perhaps, to ultimately chip in a little bit better. So as you can see, for example, here, he is able to go for Protect on this turn and sort of slowly make this Dracovish lose poison turns, etc., etc., and it allows Dracovish to take 25% just by the combination of protecting and switching another turn. He brings Protect on Nidoking as well in this game, I think, which is, in my mind, equally important, but the T-Spikes alone are extremely important. Protect is just used as a way to sort of help T-Spike's effectiveness, aid them as well. So, for example, I think you are able to see as the game progresses, he is able to slowly sort of stall out this Dracovish over time just by even getting one Protect and putting it in range of Quick Attack, for example. Going into Nidoking here allows Ben to get the kill against Tapu Koko in the end here without having to take any damage on his own, etc., etc. It's just a generally good way to abuse something like T-Spikes as well, which is very nice for Checkmate Ben in this game, which helped him out quite a bit. So good game on his end. When it comes to stalling out weather, I think this is a good example. My UBL Week 7 game for Season 6, in which even though it was a Wish Protect Jirachi, which I know I was saying I was going to stray away from Wish really isn't involved in this series of plays, in which I sort of determine a game plan on what mons I need left after this Archivish is dead to end up winning the game. And then after that, I opt to stall out Hail turns by means of Protect in a way in which the mons that I keep alive are the ones that I need to beat Zero or and Blacephalon, which he has in the back at this point in the game. So at this point, I'm just sort of clicking Protect, picking a sack. I think I go into my Tornadus here, and then I go back in, click Protect again, and eventually over time, the Arctivish is slowly whittled. So definitely go take a look at that series of plays if you want another example of how to stall out Weather Chip, for example. So the point of this video was more just to show that Protect is not just exclusively usable in a defensive sense. Yes, it's great on pressure stall teams. Yes, it's great in combination with Wish, but it has a lot more offensive utility as well. It can be used alongside other game mechanics like Hail or something else that residually chips your opponent or heals you, that can maximize your offensive presence and sort of put your opponent in range for your offensive threats to eventually kick ass later on in the game. that you're playing. It can be used in ways to counteract opponents' sort of strategies and like Trick Room, etc. It can be used as a way to maximize the efficacy of things like toxic spikes. There's a ton of examples I showed this video, and I hope that you use Protect in a more creative way in the future after seeing some examples that I've shown here. If you have any other creative ways that you've used Protect, an extremely versatile move, I'm definitely sure bound to miss something. Let me know in the comment section below, and definitely we can take a look at it. And if you have any suggestions about what I should be doing in some of these future Draft League Academia videos, definitely trying to come up with some more ideas for these, definitely let me know in the comments as well, and I will get to them and definitely try and make some content about them. So I'm going to try and do these alongside the Wi-Fi stuff. Hopefully it ends up being okay, but thanks for watching. Let me know any suggestions, etc., etc., and I will see you all later.